Brain Balance Live, where we come together each week to discuss building those strong connections with our neurodiverse children. And each week we go over new tools for your parenting tool belt. My name is Jessica Farmer. I am a literacy advocate and a fellow parent. And this is, I always point the wrong way, Heather. I'm always turned around. And
I have no idea.
It's always flipped the other way. And this is Heather Wells, our amazing expert from the Brain Balance Centers near you in Texas. She is a therapist, cognitive specialist, and National Autism Summit speaker. Hi, Heather. I haven't seen you in a while.
I know. You ready for the holidays?
We're getting there, but it is creeping up very quickly. We're trying to clean the house and prep for family gatherings and all of that. So yes and no. I'm like, it's creeping up and I feel like I have more time, but I don't. How about you?
Right. I think there's so much more to do in December. Like you have all the other stuff and then add on the holidays, which it's not always a Norman Rockwell painting. But actually my first slide, a lot of the time today, we're just going to be talking. But I put a little thing together. Look on the left. It's like, everybody's dancing around. Santa's turning cartwheels. It's going to snow in Texas, be a white Christmas. I mean, sometimes we have these visions from movies. Everyone, you meet a stranger on an airplane, you fall in love, and we can get swept up in this, or your friends are posting their fancy desserts that they make, their homemade fudge, and all of those things are fine and good. But sometimes if we try to do it all and think everything has to be perfect and like this Hallmark movie or ABC Family movie and or like our friends, if we do that whole compare thing, we exhaust ourselves. We kind of lose boundaries. And on January 2nd or before, you see this family, everybody's just done. And, dad's checked out, mom is about to fall over. The battery is on empty. And so the first tip for really increasing connection instead of conflict is to really prioritize values. Okay. And even apart from the holidays, it's a really great idea. I highly recommend weekly family meetings. But do your kids know what the word values means? And you can simply explain that these are a set of beliefs that guide our decisions and choices and behaviors, and kind of brainstorm what those values are. And there's not a right or wrong on that. That is family specific. But have people, integrity, responsibility, love, connection, kindness, those kinds of things, whatever they are for your family. If your kids are tweens and teens, once you have this conversation, talk about, do you feel like you have any values that aren't priorities in the family? Or do we value some things that aren't high on your list, and talk about what that looks like? Same thing with friends. Do you have friends whose values align with yours? Do you have some who are different? How does that impact your relationships? So values really needs to be a year-long conversation. If you've never done that before, it's never too late to start. And that really starts guiding decisions, where we can ask ourselves, why am I doing this? Is it fear of disappointing others? Is it because we've always done it this way? That kind of thing. And what can you say no to? What can you delegate? That kind of thing. And, it's about giving to others, realizing how fortunate we are, share, talk about those things, engage in a kindness project, but that really kind of gives perspective to everything else that you do. So don't just think about what's going to be the fanciest Christmas, or Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever you're celebrating, but what do we value, and prioritize those, schedule values. When we think about why we're doing something, a lot of the less important things can just go away, right. Or you put them on the back burner, and on a day there is time, I think that's just the starting point for all of this. That also helps get rid of, some materialism that kids might have, or sense of entitlement, when you just focus on values. So we can kind of take the slides away, because most of this is just talking. I mentioned family meetings. This is these are great year round. Sunday nights are often a good time to do them, although you know what's best for your family. But everybody gets on the same page about what does the week look like, who's taking Johnny to soccer practice, and oh yeah, Sarah's getting her braces taken off, and oh, I thought you were doing that. A lot of the stress of a week can be resolved by the kids sometimes when they don't know what to predict. That increases anxiety. How much more so during the holidays or when the routine is different. But talking about how did your week go? What were the highs and lows? And what did you learn? How did, and make it fun. It doesn't need to be around the board meeting table, but it's quality connected time where everyone's getting on the same page. That's very important, even if you don't do it weekly, to do it when things are going to look differently. So everyone has a voice in a family meeting. So many times we tell kids what are happening and we need to find out. Traditions are important. Rituals are important. Research shows us very consistently that they create a sense of belonging, connection, cohesiveness. They're very important for mental health. They're things that help kids form a sense of identity. However, it doesn't mean that they have to stay the same from the time, birth till they go off to college or even after that. Why are we doing this? Sometimes families outgrow values. I mean, whether it's developmentally with kids or the family has just evolved and man, I thought you wanted to do it. I thought you did. Or maybe you just update it. I hate ice skating. Well, we can still go to the light show, but just have those conversations where everyone's feeling heard. And that also starts narrowing things down. How are you feeling about going to Uncle Jason's house? Keep in mind, a lot of kids, a lot of times relatives even feel like strangers if they only see them once every year or two,
That's true. Mm-hmm.
And so talking about memories or something special Uncle Jason did for you that they may not remember because they were too young, and help them feel connected to that person without forcing it. Looking at old photos and sharing memories from other gatherings. We're going to go back to his house. I don't know if you remember, we were there 3 years ago. Do you remember that? And even pulling out photos from your phone or a photo album, all of anything that you can do to breed familiarity. Have a visual schedule. We always recommend that, but so that they know, oh yeah, this is the day we're traveling, that kind of thing. Listen very closely to what they're saying. A lot of what they're feeling and what their needs are, you already know, but they might say some things because they're given the floor. They might say things that, oh, I hadn't thought of that. Sometimes something that's not completely obvious. Sometimes kids, it's called kind of fear of loss of social status. And the word status, I mean, that can have a positive or a negative. We're not talking about keeping up with the Joneses, but if you have an only child or however many kids you have in your family, and they are used to my parents' attention goes on my brother and me. Well, now, Aunt Becky had a baby. There's going to be cousins around. The attention's going to be split, and that can make them feel threatened. And that is a typical part of childhood when something's different. And kids often confuse the amount of attention for the amount of love. Okay. So I think it's also really important to even though you're like, man, it's going to be all about family togetherness, still have that one-on-one quality time with your kids apart from the big gatherings. And have them be a helper with the younger cousin who's shown up since last time y'all were all together, so that they feel, oh, that's kind of cool. I can kind of play big sister to this baby for the weekend. Or but think about, do they have sensory needs? Even kids who do not have sensory processing disorder sometimes can become sensitive or overstimulated during the holidays because the flashing lights, going to that light show is so beautiful. If your kids, if you know that they have sensitivity, you know that might be an issue. They might need even sunglasses, that's sensory gear, a weighted blanket or a lap desk, favorite blankets, toys, little teddy bear, pillows, just anything that are some of their favorite items that they have with them can really be a nice sense of security. Earplugs, soothing music, audiobooks. Of course, you can play Christmas games, laugh, tell jokes. That eases tensions. But just think, another one that's not as obvious is a lot of kids, if you're going to be stopping, to fill up with gas and they're going to a convenience store to use the restroom, those automatic toilets can be very scary for
Yeah.
little ones with or without sensory processing issues. So you could take Post-it notes and put it over the sensor where it doesn't automatically flush. And
That's great.
once the kid leaves the stall, you can go in there and manually do it. Things like that. Think about what they need. Keep in mind that kids get tired more easily usually. Even if they're hyperactive, full of energy, whether it's mentally, emotionally, or physically, they get tired more easily. So plan for that. Must they go with you when you're shopping? Can somebody else keep them? Where they're not go, 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 go. These things are cumulative. So it's very important for you and them to schedule downtime where not every single moment is planned out. Trying to keep bedtimes within an hour or two of the norm, within reason. You're flexible. There are fun activities. Not everything's going to look the same, but we don't want to totally give up the entire routine. This is only for a couple of weeks, and it makes the transition that much harder. Healthy snacks on hand. If you don't have those in the car, in your bag, this is not a myth about how hugely what we eat impacts emotions and behavior. I mean, it is so evidence-based in the research, and that includes the drinks, having water or a drink that is not all drinks that sound healthy are. A lot of fruit juices are full of sugar, but think about it. 85 to 90% of the kids we work with have food sensitivity. So planning for that ahead of time. I'm sure you do that throughout the year. It's very important during this time. It doesn't mean they can't have a Christmas cookie, but moderation, at least on that, and having them talking through those things, and how some people might be eating a bunch of sugary sweets. Talk about why don't we do that? Why do we watch what we eat? That's another part of the expectations. If you know that there is a super desired toy that they want that they're not getting, maybe it's out of the budget, or you're just trying to teach them they don't always get what they want. This can be a difficult conversation, but sometimes letting them know that in advance before they're unwrapping the gift is a better alternative than when the whole family's sitting around, because they may have a response to that. Think about what are the tricky scenarios and then role play those. And you can make it fun and silly where they're still learning a lesson. They're having a dress rehearsal. So anything else? Do you do family meetings or no?
We try to. It doesn't always happen, and I like I think you almost need that on the schedule as well, because you were talking about scheduling everything, but really you got to schedule the meeting for scheduling,
right?
Because you can often forget that part. And then I feel very much that way, and it helps me as the parent too to see a visual of what the week looks like. And these 2 weeks off from school, you do get off routine. It's easy to veer off of it and then wonder why are we having such a difficult time? Why are we all arguing and fighting? Oh, it's because we're not on our normal routine. So I definitely need to schedule that meeting, because we didn't have one yet, and we're already on break, and I can already tell our routine is each day it just gets a little bit more off. We stay up just a few minutes later, we eat dinner 30 minutes later, and so you do see that does impact everybody in the family. So
it does.
I like the idea of planning that meeting.
Yeah. And it just, all of those things, sometimes it can be 48 hours or so, roughly. It depends. There's so many factors before eating whatever you want, because it's the holidays. It can be, it doesn't mean it's going to happen right away. Sometimes it can take a good 48 hours. But all of these things are cumulative. Having certain things build up in the system their bodies aren't used to, the change in routine, not getting quite as much sleep, the nervousness about, I don't know what to expect. That's an executive function skill. You and I predict things all the time without even realizing that's what we're doing. And if they feel that I don't know what to predict, I don't know what it's going to be like at this house, I don't know what it's going to be like to be around 30 people. We have a family of 5. Talking through those things, reading books for kids. This is talked about a lot of times with autism, but it can work with any kid struggling with prediction anxiety, is writing a social story. And that is where you and your child kind of write out, we are going to Aunt Sally's house, and you kind of describe it and what's going to happen. Sometimes my cousin doesn't want to share with me, and then I might feel XYZ. Here is how I'm going to handle it. And you read it each day. So once it happens, it was expected and they already know what to do. So, and on a side note, and by the way, all of these things I have done a deeper dive on in my daily posts the past couple of weeks. And through this week, I am giving posts with lots of detail about specific things to consider to make the holidays better for your entire family, at the Hidden Churn on Instagram or my Hidden Churn page on Facebook. I just thought I deep dive on a lot of these topics, but we want to avoid using Santa as behavior modification. Santa's watching. Because even though there's a tradition behind that, there are songs about it. It's not what we say, it's how kids perceive it. And kids can often misinterpret that as, if I do something bad, I am naughty. Like my choice defines me. Another thing is, are they really not going to receive gifts based on bad behavior? Because if you're going to give them gifts anyway, now trust has been broken. You said Santa wasn't going to come see me if I was naughty. And then I got the gifts anyway. So I don't know to trust you. And you're not, there's no intent of lying there. It is, but think about how that is perceived. There are just many reasons. I've listed them on my page why we want to avoid Santa's watching you, or the elf on the shelf is watching you. He's seeing all the stuff you're doing. That can actually really create a lot of anxiety and fear in kids, and help them, make them feel that they must perform a certain way to be loved. My approval and love are based on performance. It's fine to do Santa. It's fine to do elf on the shelf, just not as behavior modification. So we've got the family meeting. We've got, anticipate needs and create these favorable conditions, focusing on values, and when we're talking about values, that also, we need to have grace during the holidays for ourselves and our kids. Talk about, be very real. You're not just at the season and all these values and giving and connection, but you know what? Sometimes this season's really overwhelming, even for me. I have more things to do. Sometimes I catch myself feeling stressed out more, and give them permission to be feeling, and sometimes there's shame in this. Like, whenever is there a time of the year where merriment is the absolute expectation?
Right.
And so that, keep in mind that it can be, what is wrong with me? I am feeling overwhelmed. I'm supposed to be happy right now. Anything where we're telling ourselves how we should feel is not a healthy way of thinking. And while I'm on this topic, for some of these same reasons, individuals who have lost loved ones. I mean, that is of any age. If you know someone who's lost someone, really being there for them, because they may kind of be shaming themselves for feeling down. It can really put a spotlight on who the people you've lost. There are many things that make this a difficult time of year. Or we did this holiday or this tradition with grandma, and she's not here anymore. These can be really tough things. So normalize that for your kids. And I would say, you do want to review rules and stuff, but I would narrow it down as much as possible and just lower your expectations. And that's not, I'm not talking about lowering the bar in general for your kids, but just having grace.
Yes.
And, for yourself and them. But before gatherings, and this will take us to a slide, before you're getting together, it's a good idea to talk to your relatives about neurodiverse struggles, particularly if they don't understand. The good news is awareness of neurodiversity is really going up in the last 3 years. There's been research done, and there are, just on Google alone, there are 300,000 searches for the term neurodiversity now.
Wow.
So, but we're not anywhere close to where we need to be on that. But if you have family members who get uptight because they think your kids are being difficult, or do you ever get scolded for your lack of parenting skills because they don't understand that parenting neurodiverse kids is different? Sometimes somebody might say, well, I have ADHD and I had that and nobody even called it that, and I turned out just fine.
Right.
Watch my myth busting ADHD show that you can translate to a whole lot of things, whether it's sensory, autism, learning differences. But so beforehand, it's always good to talk about these things when emotions are neutral. And the best way to do that is before you all get together. We talked about predicting kids' needs, also predict where some of the tension might come. And yes, Tony, thank you so much. Good to see you. And Merry Christmas. I know he celebrates Christmas, but concretely educate relatives on your kids' struggles and not just generically, be specific. For example, with ADHD, a lot of times people think of ADHD as just difficulty paying attention and hyperactivity, but actually there is mental and emotional hyperarousal. There's brain congestion that helps them process emotions. They have trouble hitting the brake pedal and pausing and thinking before they speak and act. It is a very real thing. Be concrete and share calming strategies and the need for support. So you could say, for example, there is nothing more sensory explosive for my kids than eating, because there are new foods that they're not familiar with, and that decreases predictability. But then there's the sight, sound, or the smells, the textures. They're sensitive to hearing people chew, whatever the things are for your kids. And so I have given them permission, if they start to feel overwhelmed, to get up from the table without asking for permission and going to the calming corner. And I may get up and go check on them too. And that, and so please don't scold them for that, because that is a strategy that works for us. If you, please support us on this, and if you have allies, that your brother really understands, or your Aunt Karen understands, if you see people, can you kind of diffuse it? Or another thing that happens, and often it's unintentional, it may be that certain kids in the family tend to get more attention from some relatives than others. And so if you ever see that, that hurts Sam's feelings. Would you mind doing something special, like going out and playing catch with him, because y'all have such a special bond? Be anticipatory like this. Here's a big one. If your kids have tactile or body awareness sensitivities and are very uncomfortable with hugs or kisses, we honor those boundaries, but let people know ahead of time so they don't get their feelings hurt. I love getting those big bear hugs from you. You have so much love to give, but Susan has difficulty with that and so you can ask them, not to do it in the first place, or you can please ask for permission first. And if she says yes, great. But if she says no, because sometimes kids are okay with it depending on how overwhelmed they are in the moment. But just keep in mind, if we tell our kids to hug your grandma, you don't want to hurt her feelings, we are telling them that their boundaries don't matter unintentionally. And all boundaries are important. What an important one for them to be able to say that. What if we say, grandma wants to hug you, so let them hug you? What if some stranger wants to touch them in some way, and I'm supposed to do that when an adult asks? You think about the lessons we unintentionally teach. But gentle, collaborative, timely self-advocacy. So, how can we work together to make this work for both of you? Think about, what are the needs of the person you're talking to? Instead of a really good reflection thing is, do I try to convince my mom, uncle, brother, cousin to agree on this stuff? Or do I educate, and then do I feel less approved of, less liked if they don't agree with me? And if so, there might be an unmet need on your part, but what are they needing? Oh, maybe they get overwhelmed too. And the crying actually impacts their sensory. What can we do together to where we have mutuality in getting needs met? What would help you when this happens? They need you to go with one of your kids to the other room, or they feel that it's a collaboration, and I care about what you care about also. Timely though, if you do these things in advance and then something starts happening, is right now the time to talk to them about that? will that be embarrassing? Because everybody's sitting around, or can you find a quiet time a little bit later? Handle it with your kids the best you can in that moment. And then let me wait till later where we can do this more privately. Using I statements. I am noticing, I am hearing, I am seeing this. And I am feeling this way, not you did this, you did that. Mm-hmm. Because that is assertiveness without aggression. But of course, when you can, prevent the conflict or diffuse it, and really think about timing and delivery. The way we say things is just as important and often more important than the words that come out of our mouths. But just keep in mind, solution oriented, not getting to a fight, not, what can I do to help the other person feel heard and seen, while also making sure that I am. That sounds so basic on the surface, but in the heat of the moment when emotions take over, it's easier said than done sometimes. But just really being mindful, notice the signals in your body if you're starting to get uptight. Taking time for yourself so that you are more in a state of calm to begin with really, really helps keep our cool and I've been in these shoes, by the way. I had a loved one who, in front of the entire family, bashed my parenting because they had never raised neurodiverse kids, and they didn't understand that what works for one doesn't necessarily work for the other. And I'm stressing the timeliness of this because what I said was right. The way I said it was on point. My timing was awful. I blew it.
Oh no.
Looking back, I mean, live and learn, like if I could help somebody from the mistake I made, the timing is the part, all the components matter. Okay. But how can I shift the focus to needs of both parties or all parties and help the other person feel seen and heard instead of trying to convince them to agree? I do want to educate them, but what am I responsible for? My thoughts, my values, my response, my feelings. I am not responsible for how they respond to it, but what can I do on my end? Okay. So anything else the last tip, and you can take that away for just a minute, Bess. Thank you. The last tip is about self-care and managing. Parents, manage your stress and your expectations. And we've already talked about managing and having realistic expectations. We're going to be imperfect, but also I'm supposed to bake the pie for this family gathering. Guess what? The world won't come to an end if you buy a store-bought pie crust.
Yes.
Manage your Norman Rockwell painting if that's what's in your head. Also, if you are picturing things to go the absolute worst they possibly could, let's manage those expectations and bump them up. What's realistic? By using some of these tips, you might have a much smoother holiday, than you've ever had before. You've heard me say it before, self-care is childcare. You deserve it. You need to schedule downtime for yourself where you are doing things that remind you of who you are apart from the roles you fill, even during the holidays. Manage your expectations. Don't beat yourself up if you can't get everyone everything they want on the list. Homemade gifts. What can your kids do to contribute? That gives them they are growing competency and agency and independence. That is so motivating for kids. Have them be your gift consultant. If you're kind of stuck on something, asking your kids to be a gift consultant, that just sounds cool. And you already kind of piqued my interest, Mama, or Dad, what do you mean by that? And help me come up with ideas. When I am trying to think of ideas for a gift for someone, I need to pay attention to what do they care about? What do they need? What would be meaningful for them? You are growing perspective. You are growing their sense of the thought that goes into gifts, which can increase gratitude for what they receive. Right. So much emotional intelligence, and you're taking something off your plate. The decorations don't need to be perfect. If they make something that's crooked, it's fantastic. How much that's special. It's unique. It's one of a kind, but just nothing we do causes our kids' behavior, but calm and anxiety are contagious. We know look to us for cues about how to think, feel, and act. We're going to normalize uncomfortable emotions. We're going to model self-care and cool down strategies. doing it out loud. Like I'm feeling, excuse me.
We.
But what can I do to create inner calm and peace?
Yeah.
What can I delegate? What can I say no to? Um, and so many times, sometimes we're harder on kids during the holidays because unintentionally, I think, but because so many eyes are on our family. And
yes.
do we have any inner talk where I'm being judged for my parenting, and so I'm going to show them that it's not because of a lack of discipline, so I'm going to be on them more? That is going to have the opposite effect, most likely.
Yeah.
So the truth. It's so much easier said than done. Try not to take things personally. Let it go. What are some mantras you can replace? You know that you're a good parent. You are the exact parent your kids need. And so I just that's such a little subtle thing that can slip in there, where we have more people watching our parenting. So we think I need to parent more and be more disciplinarian during this time, when we really need to ease up a little bit. So,
and I think parents need to hear that as well, because we don't often tell ourselves that. So I'm glad you're saying that, because I think parents really need to hear that from someone else, because many times we will not tell ourselves that. Although maybe I need to make a sticky note and put it up on my mirror and say self-care, care about yourself, because you can't take care of others if you're not caring for yourself.
And one of the hardest things for me, because I was raising two boys who had been through the ringer before I took them in, and there were some very unique challenges there. A lot of our audience can relate to that. And then simultaneously, my parents were living with me. My dad lost half his brain to a tumor, and my mom had a massive stroke. And I was playing referee even between my dad and the kids. And nobody has a more beautiful heart than my dad, but he was adjusting, learning how to regulate after losing the right hemisphere of his brain. And I was doing the best I could. And I had lots of well-meaning loved ones who were, if I was doing this, I would, telling me all the things I should be doing that I wasn't doing, although I was doing a lot of those things, but I just didn't announce everything I did. Or, I got a whole lot of armchair quarterbacking. And it really bothered me for a while, and I would beat myself up. I learned to let that go. A lot of this started 22 years ago. So, I let it go many, many, many years ago. There's nothing that has given me more peace than I know that I'm imperfect, and I can look back and say, I wish I'd done X, Y, Z differently, but I've always done the best I could in that moment, and they've always had my unconditional love. And did I always make all the absolute best decisions? No, because I'm a human being. But a lot of times you might come across people during the holidays or any time of year, out at a restaurant in June, any time where people, and so much of it is well-intentioned, where they think they have all the answers and they have 1% of the information. And so really finding a peaceful place with that diffuses a whole lot. So anything else that you've
I'll just say that actually happened to me recently. We were at a restaurant and my son was screaming over something, and I got the dirtiest looks. Because they knew I was mom, just looking at me like, "What are you gonna do?" It's like, you don't know anything that's going on right now. He's hungry. He's overtired. There's just a lot of things going on right now. So, try not to judge other people. You don't know what they're going through, and you don't know what's going on with their children or anything. So kindness, be kind and loving, and lend a hand if you can.
And absolutely. And on the flip side of that, if somebody kind of says something unkind to you while you're out shopping or whatever, we also don't know what they're going through. If we can that doesn't excuse any of it, but I'm more on the side of telling people, like, be easy on the ones who have kids who are screaming, or because I work with parents all the time who's a lot of we have stopped having a family life because when we go out, we get these dirty looks.
Yeah.
Even if your kids had some sort of struggle, you still don't know the combination of factors for this family. So it's a really good lesson. So
Definitely.
that kind of rounds it out. I kind of have my holiday wish for everyone through a quote here. It is tenderness for the past, courage for the present, hope for the future. It is a fervent wish that every cup may overflow with blessings rich and eternal, and that every path may lead to peace. I thought that's such a beautiful quote that I wanted to leave everyone with, as I wish everyone Merry Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, and we will have a New Year's show in a couple of weeks. We're going to be do a replay next Tuesday for family time, and as we spend time with families during the holidays. But then we'll be back in 2 weeks.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for all the amazing information that you shared today. Definitely going to plan that family meeting because I need it, as well as my kids, because during this time we know that the scheduling is just different and there's just a lot of things that impact our everyday lives when we're on quote unquote vacation for some of us. So I'm still working, but some are on vacation, some are not. So you just never know. And these are all the ways you can contact your local Brain Balance near you. Do not forget to sign up for the newsletter. It is amazing. So make sure you sign up for that. And if you have any questions, make sure you reach out to Heather and your local Brain Balance near you. So anything else, Heather, before we sign off?
I will just say, if you want to take a screenshot of this, we kind of have our gift to you. We have a couple of sort of special holiday gifts we are giving families right now. And so feel free to reach out to either these email addresses or phone numbers to find out more about that. But I just want to wish everyone peaceful, safe holidays surrounded by everything that matters to you: values, love, connection. Thank you for sharing your time with us. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yes, we'll see everybody it'll be the new year. We'll be in the new year.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, it'll be the new year. All right. Thank you, everybody. And we will see you in the new year. Goodbye.
Right. Bye.